Hello and welcome back to Sovereign RPG. I am Sovereign and today we're going to be talking about ODIN Valhalla Rising. It was brought up in the comments from my last video to have a look at this game and check it out. So we're just going to go over today what the actual game is. And it's not even got a global release slated at all. So we've got Q4 for the Taiwanese version. The Korean version released yesterday or day before yesterday. There's a lot of videos up on it where people are playing it. Now I'm not going to play a game where it's all in Korean, where I have no real understanding. That doesn't interest me whatsoever. What we're going to talk about today is the fact that there is no global release slated. They haven't said there's going to be a global release. Now it is Kakao Games who are doing this with Lionheart Studios. I do love a bit of Lionheart Studios. They are a very good studio. Kakao Games scares me a little bit because of the fact that I just left a game that was made by them because it became a pay-to-win cash grab auto run insane ridiculous game. So there's a little bit of worry there, and I have heard previously in other games because Moonlight Sculptor was like the first Kakao Games game I played on mobile. Now I do know Kakao Games made Arcade because I did play that. Now I played a lot of PC MMOs. I played nearly every PC MMO ever created because that was my main form until I started to play Eve Echoes. It pushed me onto the actual mobile market, so I'm trying a lot more mobile games. As a side note, if you guys are interested in me actually going over some of like the PC MMOs and some PC games and stuff like that, then let me know down below and I'll actually start to try and do that. Honestly, the absolute lack of mobile games releasing that are actually decent this year has been ridiculously high. We do have a lot of decent gachas, but you guys aren't interested in me playing gachas. That I could tell that by the amount of no views that those videos got when they were released. So I know you guys are looking for MMOs, so if there's any of you PC gamers out there who also play on mobile, let me know down below and we'll do some videos on some stuff coming out in the future because there's a lot. So let's talk about ODIN Valhalla Rising. It's going to be one of those autoplay MMOs. Now we've seen some actual gameplay footage. I'll put some gameplay footage in the background for you. I have tested it myself and I have been playing it just to see what it felt like in the actual Korean version. But as I said, I'm not interested in playing a game that isn't written in English at all, where I have to try and figure out what the hell everything is. That's not my cup of tea. But you guys can just download TapTap app, download the Korean version of the game, and all you have to do is just go on to the actual, just download any sort of VPN for your phone, turn it over to Korea, and then you could open up the game. You can install the game and everything and just sign up as a guest and join in if you're running that VPN. It's not an issue. Very easy. Now, when I first saw the trailer that you'll be seeing in the background right now, I thought, wow, this is going to be amazing. And I've been duped by a lot of bloody really good trailers in the past, and then it ended up like the game being complete dog shit. But I keep holding out hope every single time that eventually a company will actually turn around and do a trailer that actually mimics the game. But on mobile, it's even bloody worse. I was going to do a video on like compiling a load of different adverts and showing you what the advert is and then showing you what the actual game plays like. I thought that would be quite fun. But I was watching the trailer for this game and it looked decent. Like the idea of it looked decent. There was a lot of stuff on there, but there was a lot of things on there that have like made the game look a lot more than what it actually is. Now, after watching a lot of different gameplay on this actual game, the graphics look amazing. The UI isn't actually that bad for one of these type of games. For one of the Korean grind games, there's normally stuff all over the screen, everywhere, all over the screen. Now, it might be that way when it comes to Western markets, because it's happened before where I've played Korean games when I was testing them out before they had their global release, and the Korean version of the game doesn't have all the pop-ups of monetary stuff all the time. But when it came to the Western side of things, then we just got literally bombarded and arse blasted by a massive amount of adverts and boxes and here, get this, then get that and get this. So it could be the case. Now there is a weird thing that I noticed when I was actually seeing the game. There's this like floating ball. This is supposed to be like a sort of Viking-esque sort of backstory. Everyone's running around with axes, swords and shields, and all of a sudden you've got this floating ball that opens up and does some stuff in the middle, which is kind of weird to me. That kind of looks out of place. I mean, you're walking around riding on horses and going through like the Norwegian highlands and stuff like that, and it looks beautiful. Like there's nothing wrong with the actual look of the game. Now the gameplay, on the other hand, from what I've seen so far, this is literally just another auto-play grindfest game, which is what you'd expect from Kakao Games. I mean, I've started to fully learn that now. It took me a while, but I got there in the end. It did get a lot of signups. There was like 2 million signups or something like that so far, downloads that have happened for the Korean version. Most of them are probably Western gamers trying to find the next thing that they want to actually play that isn't a pile of shit. But there's definitely a lot of things that sort of ruin it for me. So from what I've seen with the floaty thing that stands next to you could also be some little glow-in-the-dark bunny rabbit thing. Like a lot of the monsters look like some weird sort of like elongated lamb with some like anime ears and stuff. It's sort of like from the setting that has been set in the game and all this, so everything that surrounds you is quite medieval, it's quite old school. You're talking about like the early 10th century sort of look with the castles, the armor, the horses, the weapons. And then there's a lot of glowy stuff and weird monsters and animals and stuff. It sort of contradicts itself in its art style, which kind of put me off just a little bit, like not massively. I mean, I'm still probably going to try this game if it ever gets a global release, which is another thing that we need to talk about because the global release hasn't even been talked about. If the game does really well in Korea and the game does really well in Taiwan in Q4 when it actually releases over there, then it'll most likely have a release sometime in the next 44 years, because we know how far and how long it takes for Korean games to actually be ported over to English. It takes a long bloody time. Some games 7-8 years after we finally get them or for like global releases in English. So I wouldn't hold your guys' breath that this is going to be coming anytime soon unless they've already made the game translated into English, or they just release it as like a straight Google Translate, put this in here and it comes out with a shitty translation. That shitty translation will just go into the game. They could do that and it could be a lot quicker. But I don't really know how it's actually going to go. I definitely want to give the game a look. I definitely like the actual aesthetic of the game. Granted, I did bitch about the fact that the monsters and the magic and stuff and like the arrows firing out this great big massive ball of light when you're firing them kind of goes against each other. But I love Vikings, so I can't really help myself. It's kind of weird that you have a Viking setting and everyone's got Korean faces. That's kind of weird to me. But again, you can't always have everything that you want. Now, there's a lot of red flags that I'm seeing, especially in the, even though I can't read exactly what's going on. When I was having a look at stuff, there was definitely some things like some RNG with what mount comes out of an egg. There's definitely RNG eggs that you can open up to get mounts. There's RNG to get pets. And there's RNG to get like different of those floaty things next to you. No idea what they're called because I can't read Korean whatsoever. If anyone knows what they're actually called, let me know down below. You can definitely see that there's a lot of upgrading of items. There's going to be a lot of different monster loot and stuff to be able to upgrade your stuff, your weapons, your skills, etc, etc. There's going to be your standard Cacao Games type stuff like you would have seen in Moonlit Sculptor. And if you did like Moonlit Sculptor, then by all means, crack on with it. But for me, it's kind of pushing me away a little bit. I've fully had the experience of what they actually make now, and it's kind of set me back in my mindset on wanting to be able to play these games. It does, however, look like it's got a pretty decent manual system. Like Moonlit Sculptor definitely had a good manual system if you wanted to actually play the game and do the PvP in manual. Doesn't seem to be so far that I've seen any PvP in this game, and there's definitely, as far as I know so far, is no marketplace in this game, so you can't be selling your gear from the gear that you've collected and blah 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 to other players, which means it's going to be more of a you have to get the gear, you have to grind the gear, you have to farm the gear, or you have to buy the gear if you want to continue on, which means there's going to be a plethora of shit in the actual shop for you to sell. There are the options for land mounts and flying mounts. I saw someone pull an actual like owl out of an egg to get their owl, their flying mount out of it, which is fine. Flying mount's going to be kind of weird if they're actually going to be fully in the game, because I don't think I've ever seen that on a mobile so far, on a mobile game so far. Actually having a sort of flying mount and it having a sort of whole load of axes that you can fly around. I don't think they actually have that sort of flying system in place. I think it's just if you're at a high spot, then you just jump off the edge and you glide down when you pull the mount out, because when a person landed, it just sort of like came off the mount. So I'm guessing, and he didn't move up or down or left or right, so I'm guessing it's just literally a glorified glider. When I was playing it on my phone with the actual VPN, I did feel a lot of lag. Now it might be because the amount of graphics that was in there, it might be because there's like literally thousands of people in my starting area. There was a ridiculous amount of people, so that might have been causing a lot of the lag. But please bear in mind, if you do try this game, when you do play the Korean version, there have been many instances in the past where the actual developers close off that accounts that are being used from other places. So don't go too far into the Korean version and expect you to be able to move that character over to the global version, because that won't happen. There'll be new servers most likely, as there always is with these type of games. They don't just add you to the Korean servers, they don't just add you to the Taiwanese servers, etc, etc. You have your own separate thing, new stuff, so you won't be able to get a year or two ahead of everyone else and get the best character you have and be able to jump on the English servers with them. That is likely not going to be a thing. So that's pretty much my initial thoughts on the game so far. Let me know down below what you guys think of the game. Are you looking forward to it? Are you not looking forward to it? Do you think it's just another auto-run bullshit Cacao Games game? Or are we going to get something different? I'm not going to hold my hopes up this time because I do it too many times and it ruins me and destroys my actual view on life. So I'm going to hold off and see what happens when it happens. Right, so that's all we have for today. Remember to like and sub if you haven't already. If you'd like to become a member and get early access to my content, please click that join button next to the sub button. Fly safe and avoid local chat scams.